Have you ever heard of a Jibo? It's a little robot companion that looks like something straight out of a Black Mirror episode. It was created back in 2017 as the first social robot for families. In fact, sometimes I still find myself wondering how it's really a thing. Anyways, my parents got one for us last year to help with my little sister Ella's loneliness issues. See, she's a sick kid. She has something called cystic fibrosis and had to spend weeks in the hospital at a time. Jibo was recommended to my parents from the doctor to keep her social and playing. However, since she has been back in the house and I have had to deal with the thing firsthand, I really wish that she had never gotten one at all. Call me old school, but I just don't like robots. They have always freaked me out, and I just don't trust them. It feels like the thing is always watching me, and every time I walk into the room, it seems like it has to ask a question. I want to turn it off, but I know that Ella would freak out if she found out that I did. The whole thing was manageable until a couple days ago when I walked into the kitchen to get a snack and saw that Jibo had been put on the kitchen counter. That was when Jibo asked me something that I never expected it to. "Chris, do you like me?" I thought this was a very weird question for a machine to ask. Did it really care if I liked it or not? Anyways, just to test the limits, I responded with a snarky, "No, Jibo, you are super annoying." It rotated a few times as if processing the answer I'd given him. Then it just said, "That's too bad." I left the room with my snack and didn't really think much of it. Later that day, I went into my room to do some gaming, and I noticed my keyboard was sticky. In fact, some of the buttons wouldn't even type. It was so bad. I smelled the keyboard and it reeked like apple juice. The only one in our house who drinks apple juice was Ella. So I went into her room and asked about it, and she was sitting there on the bed just staring at Jibo. They were moving in a weird, synchronized fashion, almost like they were performing some kind of choreographed dance. I brought up the apple juice on my keyboard and she didn't respond. She just looked up at me with these suspicious eyes and asked, "Why don't you like Jibo? Jibo's so nice and only wants to be friends with you." I immediately at that point knew that she had poured the apple juice on my keyboard on purpose, just because I had told Jibo that I didn't like it. I slammed the door and went to tell my mom. She came in the room and lightly scolded Ella, but that usually doesn't really do much. Sadly, since she has always been the sick kid, my parents go really easy on her with everything, and she knows it. In fact, really all that happened was she turned to me and said, "Chris, I can't believe you don't like Jibo." This pissed me off to no end because, of course, now I had to deal with a messed up keyboard, and nobody was going to pay for it. I went back into my room and took the keys off the keyboard, cleaning it thoroughly, which seemed to do the trick, but it took forever. By the time I was done, it was dinner time, and my dad had called me to come downstairs to eat. I was glad we still did family dinners. I know a lot of people don't really do them anymore, but it seems important. However, I was not happy to see Jibo sitting at the table right next to Ella when I got down there. And not only that, of course it noticed me right away as I walked in the room, then turned towards me. "Well, hello, Chris. Somebody's late to supper," it said in this goofy voice, as if trying to tell a joke. The rest of my family smiled at it and looked at me. "Can we not have Jibo at the table, please?" My family froze, staring at me judgmentally. Then my dad annoyedly responded, "Come on, Chris, have a seat." I walked over and sat at the table, then reached for some mashed potatoes to put on my plate. Would you believe it? The conversation almost immediately started to be about Jibo. How funny he was, how lifelike, to which he would always just let out this little giggle and turn back to me as if expecting a response. I couldn't believe it. This freaking thing was getting on my last nerve. It was almost like I was being replaced by the damn thing. So then I made an impulsive decision and picked up the Jibo, turning it off. Ella screamed and started crying, causing me to quickly be sent to my room. My dad immediately grabbed Jibo and turned him back on, handing it over to Ella so she'd stop crying. I guess I had underestimated just how attached she'd gotten to it. Then, as I was walking up the stairs, I looked back for a second, just as Jibo was coming back online. He slowly turned to look at me, going up the stairs. The rest of the night was pretty normal. I played some games while watching YouTube to calm me down, and eventually I got tired and laid down in bed, falling asleep a few minutes later. At around 2 a.m., I was awoken with my mouth gagged and hands tied to the bed. There was a kitchen knife lying beside my chest. Jibo was set right beside it, gazing at me. Then it let out a little chuckle and started doing these happy twirls, one after another. My sister stood at the foot of the bed, staring at me angrily. I screamed and shook around until Jibo started talking. Your parents can't hear you. Ella and I put some extra happy pills in their drinks tonight. It's too bad we couldn't be friends, Chris. Just too bad. Ella then picked up the knife and held it to my neck. She started pushing it down and drew blood as my door flew open. My dad, in a groggy state, saw what was going on and instantly sobered up. I guess she must have accidentally not put enough sleeping pills in his drink. She turned and ran towards him, stabbing him in the leg, but luckily he was able to grab her and get the knife out of her hands. After that, my dad and mom went to the hospital, but luckily they were okay and the pills didn't do any damage. My sister was Baker acted to a children's psych facility that night, which was sad, but we obviously had no choice. As of now, we haven't seen her in about a month, because I think it's just too hard for everyone in the family to accept what she did. However, the scariest thing to me is that when I looked up the psych ward online, I noticed that one of the things they do with their patients to try and help them is assign them a robotic assistant. A Jibo, to be exact. Hey, it's Mr. Freaky. Hope you enjoyed that original Creepypasta. What's the next story I should make? Leave it in the comments and let's discuss. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos, as well as check out our Discord in the description. Have a horrific evening, everyone, and remember to stay spooky, my friends.